Hey, so I did a video recently using my sound canvas with the Polyend Play, and I used the last framework, and it was a little bit more difficult, but now that we've got 1.3 out for the Polyend Play, I thought let's do a really good tutorial on getting someone up to speed with setting up Midi on this device using some of the new features of 1.3. Setting up so we've got Midi coming in, and then we can have Midi going out and talk about the CC values and going straight into the menu here. So to get this one, you do have to go on their website and register your Polyend Play, and then go and download the new firmware. So go do that and we'll get straight into this one. I've just got it set up now with just a basic drum track going just to help out as we go, but really we're going to be looking at this Midi point here. So if we go into the scene, you'll notice a whole bunch of different stuff coming in and out, and we can control things and how it's coming in and out. So if you haven't dealt with Midi before, this is a way we use these sort of plugs here to communicate between different machines, and Polyend did give us a nice little connector here. So what I'm first going to do is connect up my nice little controller here. So I like using my Arturia Keystep 37 for a lot of things, but to get it in on the Polyend Play, we need to drop it down into here, and you'll notice behind here there is a Midi in and a Midi out, and you want to put it in the Midi out. And then I'm just going to grab the other side and try not to make a mess of cables, but that's really a struggle. So I got everything nicely powered up, and right now I've got the Midi out going out into the Midi in of the device. So think of it, you're sending signal out and then it's coming into your device. Nice way to remember it. But if we start hitting notes, like we can see the notes are working, but we're not hearing anything here. So that's one of the first things that we need to do with the Polyend Play is come into note in, and we want to turn it to Midi in jack. Now, if you're working on the PC, we'll be using the USB. So from Reaper or your DAW of choice, use USB. Right now we'll select jack, and we can use the keyboard to get the sound coming in. Cool, we have some sounds going, and really we can use the keyboard in a similar way that we can use this keyboard here. So we pick our sound and then we can start placing it around. And if I just solo that track, we can hear that we've got that pitch going. But what happens if I want to like play this into here? Because if we hit play and then hit live record, we don't have anywhere for that information to go. So how do we live play this? We can actually go live record, and I'm just going to solo that one. So all I need to do is hit play. Nothing's happening. If we live record, and it's got all the quantization and that, so if you follow along with the Polyend Play, you can change all those settings, but that's how we get notes from the keyboard into the Polyend Play live mode. But what happens if we want to put a nice chord sort of sound in there? Now, what we can do, I'm just going to delete that, is if we select multiple rows and hit play, we can actually control, so we got like one sound, we can have 3 sounds, we can have 2 sounds, and we can have 4 sounds. So if you want to fully record everything at once, you can set every channel up, and then it's taking the polyphony of the keyboard and putting it into the device. So really that's how we get our notes into the Polyend Play. Now that we've got the notes in, what about getting the notes out? So this is where we get into the Midi implementation of the Polyend Play. And this is where majority of 1.3 did a lot of its work, and it's been really nice. But what this has allowed us to do, like we have our audio, so this is playing the sampler engine up here. We can go into this, and this is actually sending Midi out. So what we need to do is connect another Midi instrument, which I have my nice little Volca keys already planned and set up, ready to go. Right now everything is set up. It's a bit of a mess of cables around here, but just remember it going out and then in. So we have a sound going here, and then what we need to do to get that sound is go into the Midi mode by holding shift and then hitting pattern, and you'll see this area change to a purple. And when you have everything set up nice, your keyboard will work with this, and then it will go on to the play. But sometimes, I didn't really talk about this before, but there are Midi channels, and right now the play is listening to every channel that I've got here. But sometimes you'll have your device like this one set up on channel 1. So if I change that to say channel 3, there's no sound going to come through. So what we need to do is just make sure that we're managing our channels, and we usually have 16 of them anyway. Cool, so we're going to edit some notes and we're going to place them in. So as before, we could just play them in, we could live record them, we can also punch in the pattern. So, but what else we can do is we can copy and paste. So if we hold shift, we can drag out, we can copy that section, hold here, paste. And so the same thing, you can do those tricky things, see how that flashes twice, and then we can use that to punch them in. But what we can do now is actually, if we like a pattern, so I like this pattern here, in the audio data, I can actually copy that, come back into Midi, put it down, and then we can paste that in here. And then that's going to copy the Midi information. So it's using the note placement and that to bring it into Midi information. So that's a really nice feature, but we've got a little bass line going here. So I'm just going to delete that line. What do we have? That actually sounds really cool off the bat. Now we're at the point where we probably want to start tweaking some of the settings, and we can come in here and start tweaking sounds using these, but it's a very tiny little potentiometer knobs here, and we could probably use these ones. So this is one of the key things that I like about the Polyend Play, is that you can set up MIDI mapping in here. So if we go back into the MIDI settings, you can see the CC mapping up here, and then you have all the different channels for different CCs. And we can go into one of these and they will show you what it exposes with these knobs here. So all those bits here we can sync up across here. Now I've done a bit of homework for making this video, because you usually find that you'll find these sort of CC documents, and then you're looking for the CC values here. So that's what's relating to here and what it's connected to. So I sort of did a bit of a cross-reference to, cutoff, I'm going to hook it up to that cutoff there. Same thing with the envelopes, I'm going to connect it up with the sample attack and decay. So I'm just making some pairings to bring it across. So go find these for your favorite synth, and then you can actually program that in here. And once you've done that sort of work, we can actually start using CCs to drive like sound. So like I've got live recording here, and so I want to. And what happens if we want to add some of the nice Polyend Play features like random and chance, like we can set up so it will play like an octave up, and it will say, let's do it like say 50% of the time. And then we can actually randomize, so we can say, ooh, let's do the filter, let's say randomize it by a lot. And if we go back to here, we'll notice some of these, like we've got a delay. So I've got that connected up to delay up here, but we got a feedback as well. So the Polyend Play is a very one sort of effect, and then you can control it. So I'm using the reverb to control the feedback, but we've got some other things like the voicing on the core keys here. We can actually change how it interacts. So if I bring in some other MIDI lanes, so I'm just going to create a sort of Euclidean beat to go alongside it. Cool, so we got something like that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the overdrive here to change the, it's a little bit off camera here, but it's got a voicing which allows me to do some cool things. So I'm just going to Alright, we've got everything programmed on the Play, and then that's driving our Volca keys. So this is a really cool setup. We can use the Play's features to create some really cool stuff on here. But let's say, like, because this has a sequencer by itself, it's a little bit loud, we'll just turn the cutoff. And then we'll mute all these channels. We can actually use the MIDI to actually use this play button to trigger this start and end. So if we go back into the Midi, we have this clock out and transport out. So transport, similar to a keyboard here, see how it's got a play. I can hit play, I'll start the play, or when I'm in the door. But what we can do is send that information out. So when I hit play here, so with Midi jack, it's controlling this one. So what I might do is I'm just going to create a new pattern. Yep, cool. Go back. There's no information here. So when I hit play, what it's doing is it's sending the play button here over to this one. It will start the sequencer over here. But it's out of sync with this one. Like I can change the tempo here, which I don't want. So I can use the clock itself to send that as well. So this will be in sync here. So if I change this tempo here, it's going to keep in touch. So sometimes you want to use the sequencer on here, sometimes you want to use the sequencer here. But what we can do with the play, I'm just going to turn off live record, just bring that BPM down a bit. We'll go back into that first pattern where I've got all this stuff set up, but I've still got the transpose working, but I've muted the notes. So now we've got this complex sequence of here's all the data here, but we're using the sequencer here. So we can like blend between the two sequences, which creates some really cool things. So that's just covering the basics of how to set everything up. Not every synth is the same, and like some are more complex. Like my sound canvas has a much more involved way of programming it, and we can change the programs and that, which the Polyend play handles really well. And in their 1.3 fix, they did update it. So I was having this issue if I was trying to change programs, but the notes were appearing on two channels. It would cause a bit of a mishap, but they've fixed up a lot of things. So definitely get on there. Definitely try mucking around with your machines and see how you go. What you'll probably want to do is program each one for each thing and just keep notes about each of your synths on hand. I would like to see that they have sort of like, they have a feature, if I just scroll down to the bottom, set values for Polyend tracker. So this is a one-click solution to get the Polyend tracker to work really nicely with the Polyend play. And I would like to see that with, say, some custom ways to connect each one. But other than that, this is a really fun way to get some music together. So definitely give it a go. So I hope that's given you a bit of an understanding on how to use Midi with this machine, because really this is such a powerful sequencer to start getting into those complex sort of rhythms and generative stuff that I really do enjoy using it with all this gear here. So definitely, if you like this one, definitely give it that thumbs up, because it does help the algorithm point this video to other people that are probably looking at upgrading their play to do some more Midi stuff. And yeah, if you really enjoy this one, definitely stick around, and I look forward to seeing you next time.